Today I'm gonna teach you 10 music production tricks and skills that every producer should know. So if you wanna take music production seriously, you should definitely know these skills. So let's get to it. Number one, a simple transition effect that I use all the time. And it's this high pass effect. Here is how you do it. Put all your samples and sounds on separate mixer tracks. So I have this one on 3, the drum loops is on 4, and the bass is on track 2. Now route all of these tracks into one track. So let's say it's gonna be track number 5. Let's rename it to transition effect and color it. And now go to your bass, which is mixer track 2, and go under track 5 and route to this track only. Do the same for the chords, which is on track 3, and route it to track 5. And the same for the drums, route to this track only. Now all of these tracks are routed to transition effect track. That means they are going to be affected by the effects that we put on this track. So how to create this transition effect? Just add parametric EQ2 to your track, right click on band number 1, choose type and high pass. Now move this 1 dot down until it's 4 dots. So we have this steep high pass, and then we're gonna automate the frequency. So just right click on this, create automation clip, and the frequency is automated. So now you have this automation in here. Make sure it starts at 0. And then at the end, let's go up with it and back down, and maybe like this as well. Shape it how you want to, but make sure it also ends at 0. And it sounds like this. So we can do less of it. You can also make it longer. This is used a lot in trance music, but also other EDM genres. And as I said, this works well with build-ups, which brings me to my next skill, number 2, build-up drums. Every producer should know how to make build-up drums, so let me show you how to do it. I'm also gonna add some more effects, so we essentially will make a full build-up. To get started with build-up drums, choose your samples. I'm gonna use this snare, which is more punchy than this clap, with some reverb, and then this snare as well, which again is punchy, but the volume is lower. So to start your build-up drums, create this simple rhythm. So first of all, we're just gonna have fill each 4 steps, and it's gonna be this. And in the second one, I'm gonna add 1 more snare here, but lower the volume of it by going to the graph editor and just lowering the volume. And we're gonna repeat this for 4 bars. So we are building that first layer, then we're gonna fill each 2 steps, but once again go to graph editor and lower every second one, like this. We're gonna repeat that for 2 bars, and then at the end, we're just gonna go all the way with the snares, but also we're gonna automate the pitch. So once again, go to graph editor, when your sample is selected, go to find pitch, and just increase it like this. So then we have this. And we're gonna leave some space for like a snare or something like that, like a little fill. So that's the first layer of build-up drums, just to get the timing right. Now let's add more. So second layer is claps. And the claps are set up in the same way as the snare. So exactly the same thing. I'm using a clap from my sample pack, STPL Sounds, link below if you wanna get some amazing samples. The snares with the claps sound like this. Just add some whoosh into it and some more reverb, which I like. And then we have more snares, which is this one. As I said, very punchy, but low volume. And this one just gets repeated all the way through like this, one after another. This sort of fills out the empty spaces. So these are our build-up drums. And to sort of finish this off, we're gonna add some sweeps and impacts. So we have this up filter, this up sweep, which is a white noise. In the second part, we have this sweep with impact. That helps to sort of move the build-up forwards, so let the listener know that this is the second part of the build-up and it's being more and more intense. And then we have some more impacts on the start and in the second part. And once again, I'm using the same transition effect from the previous step. Then finish this off with like a Prada snare or some fill. And your build-up drums are ready. So here's how it sounds. Moving on, number 3, learning how to work with samples. So this one is a little trick that you can use with samples and turn one sample into an infinite number of samples. So here's how you do it. We have our kick here. Sounds like this. So just click on it and go to this section right here, which a lot of people don't even know exists. And then you can play with the pogo. So just by moving this knob, you can transfer one sample into so many different samples. So let's preview it. Suddenly our sample sounds a whole lot different. And we can do the same with a clap as well. So just go here. You can also move the cutoff and other things here. We basically just created brand new samples. Moving on, skill number 4. Every producer should know about the basic mixing concepts. For me, those are EQ, stereo manipulation, reverb, volume, and panning. So let me show you how to use all of these really quickly. So first, let's get the obvious out of the way, which is volume. If you want to get a good clean mix, first take a look at the volume of the sounds. I recommend using something like Wave Candy, change the preset to peak meter, and now you'll see the decibels of your track really nicely. And then check all the sounds that are playing and see how many decibels they are playing at. So we have the drums, -5. Then we have the chords, -8. Then we have the bass, is around -6. Sometimes it pops off, but that's okay. Then we have the arpeggio around here, some sweeps and hi-hats. Just take a look at your decibels. What you are looking for is the drums should be the loudest in the mix. Usually the kick is where you sort of set your loudest volume. So for me, it's at -5 decibels. So all of the other sounds should be below that. Of course, there are exceptions, but this is how I like to mix my music, where the drums are the highest and then all the other sounds are below that. When it comes to how many decibels should be the chords, how many decibels should be the bass, well, you sort of have to listen to the song and decide for yourself what you want to be the loudest and what you want to be sort of in the background. So I sort of want these chords to be more obvious. So they are at -8. The bass should also be pretty obvious in the mix. So it's also at -7, -8. And this sound should be in the background. So I lower the volume of that one. So yeah, that's how I do mixing when it comes to volume. Now let's take a look at other mixing concepts, which is panning. So a lot of people actually don't do this, but panning your sounds to the left and right is actually really useful to create some more space for the sounds in the middle. So when it comes to sounds that I like to pan a lot, it's for example hi-hats. So as you can see, I have this hi-hat loop right here. Some of the hi-hats are to the left, some of them are to the right, and some of them are in the middle. I also panned the hi-hats in piano roll, so just go to note pan and pan them right here. That will result in a more fuller mix because the sounds will come from all directions. I know you just have 2 speakers, but panning the sound sort of makes it sound like it's coming from a different direction. Now, the other concept is EQ. You probably heard about EQing. So a simple tip that I can give you, all the sounds that don't have bass, you can EQ the low frequencies from them. So for example, these chords don't really have bass, so I'm gonna put them on mixer track number 5. Go here, put parametric EQ2 on it, and actually just go to presets, 40 Hz cut, and remove all the low frequencies. It's pretty much not gonna change the sound, but it's gonna create more space in the whole mix, because there was some rumble before, as you can see. There's some rumble in the low frequencies, but if you just delete them, the sound pretty much stays the same, but you have more space in the whole song. We can also do the same for the melody. And as you can see, I already did it. And we can do the same for the hi-hats. Just remove the low frequencies. Because even the hi-hats have some low frequencies that are sort of mudding up your mix, even if you cannot really hear it. So I pretty much deleted them from all of the sounds except the bass. Because of course we need the low frequencies there, and the drums as well, because the kick and stuff like that also needs the low frequencies. Then another mixing concept is the reverb. I still use Fruity Reverb 1, which a lot of people don't, but make sure to use reverb a lot for the sounds that you want to be sort of more atmospheric or create that open feel, like this arpeggio. And also I like to lower the dryness for the sounds that I want to be sort of more in the background. A reverb oftentimes can put sounds more in the background, which I like, but sometimes you just want to make them even more obvious so they play longer, so that's how you use reverb then. So definitely use reverb effectively in your music. And the last one I want to talk about here is stereo manipulation. So as you can see, I use Stereo Shaper here from FL Studio, and I use the preset called Stereoize 2, which turns a sound that is sort of in the middle of the mix and puts it more to the sides of the mix. So let me show you an example here. If this sound was all mid frequencies, it would sound like this. So as you can see, there is no panning, it's right in the middle of the mix, and you can sort of tell that it's coming from right in front of you. But if we put the Stereoize 2 preset on it, it will suddenly come from all directions, more to the sides. So once again, this is in the middle. This is stereo. So to effectively use this, once again, use it for some sounds. So when some sounds are stereo and some sounds are in the middle, once again, you're gonna create more space for the sounds in the middle and also create separate space for the sounds that are stereo. You can also think of the mix in that way where sounds are here, they are here, and they are here. So make sure to create space for each one. And once we have that, the song sounds like this. I think it sounds pretty good. Of course, there's a lot more to learn about mixing, but I think if you nail these things, you can improve a lot in a short period of time. Now, moving on. Number 5. Everyone should know how to create some house drum patterns. I think house drum patterns translate into other EDM genres as well, so I want to show you a few examples of a cool drum pattern. Also, make sure to have your swing enabled, so everything is sort of more groovy and offbeat. And now let's take a look at the patterns. So we have the kick, we have the hi-hat, we have the claps, and that's our first basic drum pattern. In the second variation, we can play with the open hi-hat. So as you can see, I put the hi-hat in the piano roll, and then we create a different rhythm, putting some hi-hats before the actual open hi-hats and putting some of them after it, and of course lowering the volume of those filler hi-hats. We create this nice groove. Already a bit more flashy. Now next we have this drum pattern. So we keep the kick, open hi-hat, claps, but we add one more hi-hat, which is a closed one, and we put it before the open hi-hat and then before the third open hi-hat. Next, we go a step further and we add this hi-hat before the original open hi-hat and then after the second open hi-hat and then after the fourth open hi-hat. But we add one more hi-hat, which is also a closed one. Just sounds a bit different, and we add it before the third open hi-hat. So just copy this rhythm and you're gonna have this nice groovy deep house rhythm. Any bass you put under this is gonna sound good. So that's our fourth rhythm. Our next one is, instead of using the hi-hats, we're gonna actually use some percussion. So I have this percussion, which is this short snare, and here's the rhythm that I created with the percussion. So it's good to enable metronome so you can hear actually how it sounds. Copy this rhythm and it's gonna sound like this with the drums if we are using the basic drums. Sort of complements the claps as well. The next rhythm, I'm actually using all the hi-hats, but I also added some shakers. So when adding shakers, just make sure to choose like 4 different shaker samples and also make sure to pan them left and right. So I'm using the shakers like this. But I actually disabled the swing for the shakers because then they would sound sort of off. So just go to each shaker sample, go right here and disable the swing, so lower it all the way down because you don't want the swing for the shakers, and they sound like this. So adds even more groove. Now the last one, I just sort of experimented with all of it. I even added some more filler kicks like this and lowered the second kick and played with the claps. I don't know what I did, but we have this. I just wanted to show you that you can also be creative and create your own twist to the drum pattern. Something like this, where the claps roll into it. So just lower the volume of the claps, put one after another, and you have this clap roll. Now, staying on the topic of drum patterns, I want to show you this cool hi-hat trick. Number 6, hi-hats. This one is actually from Disclosure, and it's about changing the length of your open hi-hats. So go to your open hi-hat sound, which ideally it should be a long open hi-hat, like this one from my pack, STPL Sounds. And speaking of STPL Sounds, you only pay once and you get access to my current and future sample packs forever. So you'll be getting new packs for the rest of your life and you only pay once. Anyways, so choose an open hi-hat that is long and then go to envelope. Make sure to enable the envelope and lower everything except the sustain, which should be all the way up, and a little bit of the release as well, so we have more natural decay. Now, if you do that, when you press the hi-hat for a short period of time, it will play for a short amount of time, and when you hold it, it will play for a longer time. So then you can go to piano roll and make shorter and longer notes like this and play with the length of the hi-hat, make it sound a lot more natural, like a real human being is playing it on the drums, and you can create something like this. And again, you can also add more filler hi-hats and lower the volume of them. And just play with the length, shorter and longer notes, and then you can actually use it with the drums and sounds pretty cool. Sounds a lot better than just one repetitive hi-hat. I mean, sometimes. So yeah, this is a little cool hi-hat trick that I use a lot, and now you can too. Moving on to more music theory stuff. Number 7, we have counter melodies. Every producer should know how to make counter melodies. So let me show you an example and explain how it works. So we have this bass with drums. So as you can see, this bass sort of goes up, then down. And to create a counter melody, we sort of want a similar rhythm, but different melody. So the way I go about it is making sure you have the melody in the same pattern. So you can see the ghost notes. If you don't have the ghost notes enabled, just go to View, Ghost Channels. That way you can see other channels in the same pattern. So this is my original bass. And here is our counter melody. So it has the same rhythm as the original bass, but the original bass goes up and this counter melody goes down. So it sort of plays its own thing. Together they sound like this. So yeah, if we wanted to create a different counter melody, we can try. So you can see this one sort of goes along with the bass, but then the bass goes lower and the melody goes higher, and it plays different notes but the same rhythm. The concept is simple. When you have some chords or bass or melodies, try to make another melody that goes against them. So altogether it sounds like this, and I'm gonna show you one more example. Now let me show you a second counter melody example. So here I have more of a hip hop beat, and here is the melody that I went with originally. So really simple, notes going up and then down, and then we can add more counter melodies. So I have this sound right here, and we're just gonna fill in some empty spaces. So you can see the original melody sort of goes with one note, and this melody responds with 2 notes. Then we can go even further and add this melody. So you can sort of tell this melody has this as counter melody. So basically this melody goes with 2 notes, and this melody, the counter melody, responds with 2 different notes. So yeah, these are some examples of counter melodies. So it's not your traditional melody that goes up and down and plays a melody, but it's multiple melodies that sort of respond to each other. Then we end up with something like this. Now moving on to tip number 8, choosing the right samples. So I think one of the most important things when it comes to producing is having the right samples. Now I actually prefer to buy my samples and have them right in my FL Studio instead of like using Splice or something like that. The sample packs that I recommend is obviously KSHMR sample packs, which I used pretty much for the majority of my music production journey. But now I also recommend my sample packs, which is STPL Sounds, where I sort of went the same way and created a pack that has samples for all genres. And if you do buy STPL Sounds, you'll actually get access to my current and future sample packs forever, and you only pay once. So that means once you buy it, you don't pay monthly or nothing like that, but you have access to new sample packs every month. So that's what I would recommend, because I created a product, obviously, and having the right samples will make your life a whole lot easier. Tip number 9 is using the right plugins, and for that I recommend Serum, which is just an amazing plugin, but mostly because there is so many presets created for this plugin that you can pretty much search for any genre and you'll find presets that you need. So this is definitely my favorite plugin. Also in STPL Sounds there's tons of presets for this plugin. I also like Nexus, which has really well done presets that are already like mixed, so they're gonna work well right off the bat. So every producer should know what sample packs and plugins they want to use. And once you choose your sample packs and plugins, stick to them. That's my recommendation. I usually use the same sample packs and same plugins to create my music because I know how to move around them and I know which sounds work and which don't. Of course, sometimes I experiment with different plugins. And now let's move on to tip number 10, which is take advantage of free plugins. There's tons of free plugins that are amazing, and here are a few. So we have Labs by Spitfire Audio. This gotta be my favorite free plugin. It has amazing sounds, like this soft piano that I use all the time, but so many more acoustic sounds especially, and atmospheric sounds as well. Definitely get this one. Again, it's just free. Another free plugin is Kontakt Player. So Kontakt is not free, but Kontakt Player is, and you can get some free libraries within it as well, like this factory selection. I definitely recommend this one. And when it comes to orchestral sounds, there's a lot of free libraries, like this one by Orchestral Tools with some amazing pianos. Or strings. And some trumpets and brass, which is always useful. And if you don't want to get Serum, you can also use Vital, which is very similar to Serum, but it's a free plugin as well, with tons of cool presets. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of free stuff right now, so check them out. I will link them in the description as well. I hope you learned something new. Make sure to check out STPL Sounds to get access to my current and future sample packs for one-time payment only. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!